Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the People's Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Emstoy. This is our host, Garrett Fitzpatrick. How you doing, Garrett?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
Oh yeah, doing good, doing good. Today we are going to be talking about the Bill of Rights, our pilot episode, and that is our first subject. So, Garrett, you did some research on it. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the Bill of Rights?
Yeah, so originally the Constitution did not include the Bill of Rights. That's why there are amendments.
Mhm.
James Madison actually wrote them. Originally, there were 17 that he proposed. The House, I believe, uh, gosh, they passed them with 12 included, and
Mhm.
then that was narrowed down to the 10 that we have now in the Senate.
Mhm.
Um, there was actually some resistance to including the Bill of Rights, though, from the Federalist side. They argued that um, a lot of what was in there wasn't necessary because the Constitution already said that um, any powers not given specifically to the federal government were already reserved for the states and the people. They're like, we don't need to guarantee rights because we're not given the power to take it away in the Constitution. Obviously, that's not
Right.
good enough.
You need to
We know
always,
that.
as we were discussing, you need to always get that stuff in writing. Always.
Yeah.
It's called in the business or military side of it. It's called CYA. Cover your ass. So always cover your ass with getting stuff in writing. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why we are here today to talk about what needs to be expanded in the Bill of Rights, what
Right.
should have been included but isn't, and how maybe we can modernize what already is there.
Hmm. So that is the history. Let me uh, go over. So those of y'all, I'm sure there's a few of the amendments that y'all will recognize, but not everyone knows all 10 of them. So I'll just kind of skim over them real quick. So the first article, First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Basically, separation of church and state. That is, and religious freedom. That's another one. So religious freedom, there's no restrictions. Also, it is your First Amendment right for the people to peaceably assemble. And also, so it's kind of a mix of all three of those. What's going on?
Quick note on that. Both of those, actually, religion at least is a natural right. What was the second one again? It
Given
like
right.
blanked out of my brain.
Given right.
No.
The natural and given right. It's separation of church from state, freedom of religion, and right to assemble.
Right to
Peacefully
assemble.
Right.
Right. Both of those are natural rights.
Right.
They would exist outside any system.
Right. So that's the first one. Second article, a lot of rednecks' favorites here. The Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. All right, I just shall not. All right, let's remember that, be infringed. Not should be capitalized. All right.
Yeah, and
N-O-T.
this one's interesting because it is a given right, but it's a derivation of a natural right.
Mm-hmm.
The natural right is freedom, right? the right to
Well,
bear.
also back then, not so much today, but also back then, it kind of was a natural right because it was a way to live. Because yes, you would farm, but a lot of times you did, especially if you weren't in the big city and you lived out in the wilderness. You had to hunt your own food. You had to hunt boar, deer, elk, whatever it was, and so you had your gun, and you needed that gun to go hunt or whatever. And then obviously they used them for the revolution. So,
I mean,
and that was called the Kentucky long rifle.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one can sit there and argue, yeah, they could go out and make a bow, but
Mhm.
I mean, the whole point is that the government can't take it away from you.
Right.
You know, you can also make your own gun if you want. Government can't take it away from you. That's the real thing.
Well,
Now,
unless they
in
find it.
modern times, we will say, there are certain people that just should not have guns. We know better. You know, we know that they're not responsible. We know that
Mhm.
they're not to be trusted. We can keep guns out of the hands of people who would abuse them without limiting um, uh,
Those
law-abiding
rights.
citizens,
Right.
responsible people.
So that's my whole thing. If you're a law-abiding citizen, I guess the very few exceptions that I'd make for that rule are if you're a perpetrator of rape, sexual assault, pedophilia, capital murder, um,
Domestic abuse, even.
domestic abuse. That's another one because if
Yeah,
you're
if they're
willing to
gonna
beat
punch
your wife,
someone,
what would
yeah,
happen if you get a gun in your hand? Like
exactly,
if you're willing to
exactly.
beat a woman or beat anyone, and it doesn't have to be male or female. You could be in a gay relationship and go
Yeah,
through domestic violence. That's a big thing, that a lot of people don't know about. Um,
yeah, it is.
so Article 3 here, no soldier, and we talked about this, no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. So really today we don't really have to worry about this so much. Um, it's just
Right.
really
Well,
not a
we
thing.
were talking about this earlier. We don't need the part where uh, except as prescribed by law. They just
Mhm.
shouldn't be in there, right?
Right.
I've heard some people in the past argue that we just don't need the amendment anymore because they're not going to. But I find that to be exactly like the fucking Federalist argument. We
Right.
know
It's
better.
better. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. you know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Uh, you know. So Article 4 is the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So no search and seizure without a warrant is basically what it is. You cannot do a warrantless, which cops are doing. Cops are breaking this every day,
Yeah.
hundreds of times a day, every day. Uh, like with no knock raids and red
Not just
flag.
that. Not just that, dude. I
Mhm.
mean, okay, you were there that night that I got pulled over. Uh,
Dude, I
because
remember that. And
there
to
was
this
no
day I kick myself for not videoing that because that cop
there's
would have
no
been fired.
probable cause. And that's what I was arguing with the cop too, right? There's
Mhm.
no probable cause. You have no reason to be stopping me in the first place. No, you can't see my ID. You can't search me. You can't have my papers.
Mhm.
You have no probable cause.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, no. So I think you bent the rules a little bit on that one. So he can't search you, but he can ask, I guess, for ID or whatnot.
Read the amendment again. I have the right to be secure in my person, effects,
Right of the
papers.
people to be secure in their Okay, yeah, persons. Okay. So the houses, yeah, papers and effects against unreasonable searches. No. So what I think it means is, okay, has a right to be secure in their person, which means he can't search. He can't search you. Like he can't reach into your pockets and everything.
Right. He also, like, okay, yeah, he has the right to ask me for those things. Do you see what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
I also have the right to say no,
Okay.
because again, he has no reason or probable cause.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Supported by oath or information. Yep. All right. So Article 5 here. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property. We were talking about that earlier. Life, liberty, and property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So this one, that's the longest one, is Article 5, and it has 2 or 3 of the things that normal people talk about. So you can't. Oh, hey, buddy. So you can't incriminate yourself, or they can't ask you like in court of law, did you do it? Uh, that's illegal. Um, you're guaranteed a jury. You're guaranteed a jury of your peers. Oh, double jeopardy. Say I say I didn't, murder someone and someone did, but I was tried for it and then found innocent. Well, once I'm found innocent, even if later on it's proven that I actually did do it, they cannot try me again uh, at all. That's double jeopardy. Um, and it's there to protect the innocent people, because what if the cops want to try you again and again just to throw you in jail? That's not right. Life, liberty, and property. uh, Due process, which means you are innocent, 100% innocent until you are convicted guilty in a court of law, which is it's a fucking joke nowadays. Like,
Yeah, obviously,
you're basically guilty
I would
until
say that
innocent
part of,
nowadays.
like, there's a good foundation to the judicial system that we have now, but it's not good enough. It needs to be expanded and it needs to be solidified to where we don't have injustice making its way through justice. You
Mhm.
see what I mean?
And then shall not, without due process, shall be taken for public use without just compensation, right? All right, so Article 6, this is the last kind of long one. It's not as long as that one. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. So right there on the last one, and to have assistance of counsel for his defense, you absolutely have a right to counsel, to a lawyer, an attorney, whatever, a bloodsucker, whatever you want to call them. All right, you have the right to have them, or you could defend yourself, but you're probably not going to do too well.
And if you are denied any of those things, then you can bring it into a new case and get the entire thing dismissed because
Oh
they
yeah,
didn't.
absolutely. No matter how bad the crime you did was, if those are not met, like if you say I want to see my lawyer and you're denied that right, you're acquitted. Like and then you finally do get a lawyer, like say months down the line, you'll be acquitted like that. Like um, so Article 7 in suits at common law or in suits at common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. Garrett, you want to explain that one?
Honestly, that one is one that always kind of struck me as more of a product of its time. Like,
because
it's
$20
still-
in 1776 is like, oh, hey, buddy. That's probably like 200 or 2,000 today, like.
I don't know, man. Like, that one I think definitely needs some updating. It still has its purposes. I'm not entirely sure what they are.
The value of controversy shall exceed $20. The value right of trial by jury shall be preserved.
You know what? If I remember correctly, I believe that has to do with civil cases.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the others were dealing with criminal cases.
Right. So if anyone's listening and y'all can put that more in layman's terms for us, we would appreciate it. So Article 8, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. So the nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted, like torture or whatever to any American citizen, that's pretty straightforward. No torture.
Yeah,
Basically.
and some of these rights, they need to apply to everyone, not just citizens.
Right. Well, also, I think so check it out. It says excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed. I mean, that's kind of general. Like, what exactly is excessive, or what exactly is But then again, as years go by, excessive now might not be excessive 30, 40 years from now, or 40 years ago.
I would say that the bail we have now is absolutely excessive because there's people that can't make it.
Right. So I do know you have to pay 10% of whatever the judge says. So if the judge says your bail is set at $1,000, boom, you have to pay $100.
Well, that's only because bail bondsmen exist. Otherwise, you would have to pay the $1,000. They're literally selling you a loan to people who need it more. Like they're taking advantage of people, really. Like, and the courts support it by doing this. That's the thing. They're supporting capitalistic exploitation of other people's money.
Right. Which bail needs to be it needs to come down, because basically then you can just hold someone who is poor, and if they're innocent, they can't afford bail, and you're just holding an innocent person. I mean, you could be holding the guilty party.
I actually recently read a story. I don't know how true it is, but I have no problem believing it, honestly. It was this woman talking about her experience dating this guy who was rather wealthy, and he would do illegal things, like parking in places you're not supposed to. And she'd be like, hey, you're not supposed to park there. You can't park there. And he's like, yeah, you can. It just costs 150 euros.
Oh, yeah. The guy's so rich, like a fine doesn't matter to him, basically.
Exactly. And that's, a lot of people argue that
that's wrong. Yeah.
It just means legal for the rich.
Right. Legal for the rich because they can afford it.
Right.
Legal for the rich, not for us. And whatnot.
Yeah, that's why I don't believe we again
Like
should be focused
$150 for
on.
me and you is like, holy shit, I could pay some bills with that. But for
Mhm.
them, it's like, oh shoot, I dropped a dime and a nickel. You know,
Yeah.
like whatever. So which one was okay? That was 8. So 9. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Let's read that one again. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people.
So this one is important. What it's saying, uh, this is basically a federalist line of thought here. What it's saying is just because we're spelling out these specific things doesn't mean that other rights don't exist.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Deny those other rights just because we didn't fucking write them down.
Okay. I gotcha. Article 10. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Okay, so this basically means just because the the federal government didn't make a law about something doesn't mean the state or the city uh, has to, basically.
Actually, no. What it means, and this is one of the most abused
Hmm.
and ignored out of all of them, is that the federal government cannot do shit that isn't uh, specifically it isn't specifically told it can in the Constitution itself.
Hmm.
If it
Powers
does
not
not,
delegated.
if the Constitution does not give the federal power any specific powers, those powers aren't there for the federal government. They can't do it.
Hmm.
Only the states or the people have that. How much shit can you think of that they do that is not given to them in the Constitution?
Right. So okay. So like rereading the end, nor prohibited by the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people, which means states and cities can make a law based on it. The federal government cannot.
Right.
So marijuana, for instance, is that a good example? Nowhere in the
Yes. Yeah.
Constitution
The
does it
federal
say,
government zero fucking right.
yeah, now as much as we want marijuana to be legal, the states and the cities do have the right to make that law to say no.
Technically, under the Constitution, yes. I think that's a loophole we should close. I don't think that the states should I mean, technically it was already kind of closed, but not good enough. The
Well, it was
supremacy
completely back
clause.
then. It was completely legal. The founding fathers who made this were probably high, like half of them. Like
Right.
so they never thought, like what? So
Remember the part where we were just talking about that one part where the federal government cannot do anything that's not specifically given to them, and they can't deny rights just because they aren't specifically written, right? Now, that means that the states technically could at the time. Now we have the supremacy clause, so they can't deny rights that are specifically spelled out,
mhm.
but they can other ways. So it's like, not very good. And of course, the federal government is completely ignoring the fact that they don't have these fucking powers.
Right. So next, Garrett. All right, it is time to discuss what your thoughts and everything. So, Garrett, you want an expansion on the Bill of Rights. Um,
Indeed.
tell us what you want to expand.
Well, I tend to agree with James Madison that it wasn't enough, and that he also argued that the things listed in the Declaration of Independence should be codified. And, they kind of were, kind of. But today, we don't really see, I've actually heard people argue that we don't have the right to life. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we do. That's a natural right. That is something that
I'm sorry, wait.
exists.
Did you say you don't have the right to life?
Yeah, yeah. Literally, I've had two different people in the past week argue that with me.
I have they life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And well, okay, even without that, morally saying no one has the right to life, like
Yeah, I
that
know.
that's morally wrong to say in and of itself.
Right.
Like that means
Obviously,
I don't think
you have the
anyone
right
has
to
the
life.
right to life. So if I want to kill you, then I can just kill you. You know?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
exactly.
just because I feel
Exactly.
like it, because you don't have that right. And you're like, what?
Yeah, and
So
the, I the thing is I don't think they really considered what they were saying, because it was in the midst of a conversation about the right to land, the right to food, the right to water.
mhm.
And they're like, no, you don't have a right to those. But they said it, you don't have the right to life. Those were the words they
Well,
used.
okay, Garrett, if they don't think you have the right to life, there's no way they're gonna think you have a right to water or food or land or any of
Right, right, right.
that.
But see, here's what I'm saying is I don't think they really considered what they were saying. They were trying to say, no, you don't have the right to food, water, and a house.
Right.
They were trying to say that, but they shortened it to you don't have the right to life, and
Oh, I see.
revealed
I see.
themselves. You know,
Yeah.
they they're hypocrites.
Yeah.
You know, these are people that probably, if you bring up the Declaration of Independence, they probably think it's a legal document.
Mhm.
You know, but they'll
I
argue
mean,
that
it kind of is because it tells the world that hey, we're not a part of England anymore. You know.
it's a letter of intent. It's a bunch of different things, but
But
what it
it
doesn't
was
have
also
is legally
hold on.
binding power.
It was also arbitrary because if we lost the war, then it means nothing. You
Yeah.
know. So it is, but it isn't.
Well, it again,
Depending
like
on
I
who
said,
won the war.
it has no real legal backing. It's just a historical document.
Right, telling the King George to, you know,
Yeah. All right. Fuck
yeah.
the British.
So,
um,
so real quick, can you discuss to our audience the difference between natural rights and given rights?
of course, of course. Um, we were talking about uh, what they were a little bit earlier. Natural rights are things that you have regardless of the system. That's what the founders would have called uh, uh, inalienable rights. Sorry.
Okay, I was. That's what I thought you were gonna say, but I was like, I might be wrong. I don't know.
I
Where he's going with that?
sometimes my brain shorts out a little bit.
Mm.
um, so yeah, that's what the founders would have called inalienable rights. It's things that you have no matter what. The only thing the government can do is take them away.
Mhm.
In my view, it's always wrong for a government to take away your natural rights.
Right, right, absolutely.
Now, important note on that subject, of course, we need to be clear that rights only extend as far as other people's. Now,
Basically, as long as you're not hurting anyone financially or physically, then in most cases, it shouldn't be illegal.
right. Um,
At the minimum, it shouldn't be legal.
right, right. Now, given rights, on the other hand, are rights that exist only because of the system that we exist in. Voting is an example of that. You know, it's not really a right because it's not something that exists in nature.
Right.
It exists because we need a government.
Right.
And so because we have this government, we have the right to have some say in it.
Mm-hmm. All right. And now some of the given rights. So natural rights that you want to expand on, Garrett, are food, water, and land, because you have a right to life, and you need those things for life, basically.
If you have
So
the right to life, you have the right to the essentials of life.
right. So what about given rights? So you explained what they are, but so here I have from your list electricity, internet, healthcare. Electricity, internet, and healthcare.
Right,
Is that about
because
right?
we live in a modern society where not having those things can be depriving you of life or your freedoms.
Okay.
You know, it's hard to get a job without the internet. It's hard to live in modern society without electricity. Like, those are things you need in today's society.
Okay. How would you implement? Now,
How
are we now? I guess it deserves the question to answer that question. Uh, if you were president today or something in the political system we have right now,
Whew, that's that's a lot.
In that case, okay, say you had your utopia government then. How would you
Uh-huh.
implement
Can you be a bit specific about which one you're talking about? Like,
the
pick one for
your
me to focus.
your ideal government? We're in your utopia right now.
I'm saying that different rights would require completely different methods of implementation.
Oh, you're saying which right are we talking about? Okay. Well, I mean, I kind of think electricity and internet go kind of hand in hand, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
So
okay,
how would you implement that one?
simple matter. Make them public services. Like,
Okay.
literally, you pay into taxes, you have access.
Okay. And same thing with healthcare, just healthcare for all, like Bernie Sanders or some. Okay. Um. All right. How will be a positive thing?
Well, for one thing, a person can move out of their parents' house immediately. They don't have to like go get a job. They don't have to um, they don't have to sell their labor to anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, not right away, right? They can go live on their own, and they can work on things that are important to them. They can spend their time learning. They can spend their time making things. They can spend their time growing food. And in that way, they can sort of have a partial participation in society while they build up the means to fully partake in it.
Mm-hmm.
We would eliminate homelessness. We would eliminate starvation. We would eliminate dehydration. We would eliminate a lot of unnecessary death. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but I think that's always a good thing.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of partial to being homeless and starving and whatnot myself. Nah, yeah, and I don't think anyone likes that at all. you know. Um, let's see. Uh, do you think there will be any short-term like negative effects?
Well, in as much as possible, I'd like to not reduce any negative effects, but I mean, things can be unpredictable sometimes. So it's important that we deal with negative effects. I'm sure there will be some. I
Right.
can't predict what they are because obviously it's not like I'm just going to be like, oh, well, that's going to be a negative effect, but I'll just leave it in there.
So I think one of the negative effects is that, taxes is going to be a lot higher because all of a sudden we're paying for things that were never there before, right? We're paying for everyone's healthcare, we're paying for everyone's internet, we're paying for everyone's food, we're paying for everyone's water, everyone's land, everyone's electricity.
Whoa, now hold
I think,
on. We're not
you
paying
know,
for anyone's land. We're not paying for anyone's land. The land is free. It's our planet.
okay, yeah.
However, I will water, same thing, by the way.
Well, you got to get the water from somewhere, and it takes labor to extract the water to get it to you, you know.
Well, yes. Okay, fair. I'd still say public service. You're paying government employees. Here's the thing. Couple notes on that. There is a lot of excessive and unnecessary spending that goes on in government right now.
Mhm.
Secondly, in the
War on
economy,
terrorism. Sorry, had to cough there.
what?
You hear what I said? I said war on terrorism.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, the global war on terrorism. So many tax dollars go into that. Locking up people for marijuana, not using marijuana as something to tax to get money for programs. Like
Yeah.
like
Here's the thing.
Colorado has been putting all their marijuana taxes towards education, and their education in their on like national polls have shot through the roof.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and there. The other thing about that. Uh,
Oh, military industrial complex, another one.
the other thing about that is that while we will be eliminating certain taxes, there are other ways that we can generate income. For example, I believe that now this is going to be short term, but I think it's important to do. We need to place tariffs products coming in from countries that don't have a lesser standard of living, like to
Also,
such an extent that it becomes less profitable to produce in those countries.
right. Also, another thing is the private prison complex. Or not only that, but public prisons. We have more prisoners than any other country in the world, even China or North Korea. Like, that's ridiculous. Yeah. And so we're feeding all these people and housing all these people and paying all these guards to watch all these people. But once we legalize a bunch of these laws that are arbitrary and ridiculous, there will be way less prisoners in prison, and so therefore we won't have to pay money to feed them, house them. We won't have to pay money for the guards. Sorry, you're just gonna have to find somewhere else to work and beat someone. Yeah. And that money could go towards other social things.
Yes, absolutely. And even prisons, we can reduce a lot of it by focusing more on rehabilitation and prevention than being punitive. Because
just like Sweden, Norway, Finland, I think they do that.
Right? You focus on rehabilitation and prevention, and you reduce the number of people in prison as well as reducing the number of repeat offenders. There's data all over.
Not, and not only that, but that means there's more money circulating because
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's also a larger labor force.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, but that's let's see. We have been at it for exactly 39 minutes. So, Garrett, do you have any closing remarks?
Um, I know that a lot of what we're talking about seems radical, maybe, but I think at the same time you'll understand that a lot of what we're talking about is common sense too.
In
These are
what way?
things that just could have been
For our
done in the
more,
first place.
in what way is it common sense for our more like conservative viewers?
Freedom, if you want freedom, you have to guarantee it as much as possible for everyone.
Hmm.
I think we can all agree that freedom is a good thing. I think we can all agree that economic freedom is also a good thing. In general, the idea is to produce a greater amount of freedom and a greater amount of well being. If we can agree on those principles, then I think we can find a path forward.
Oh yeah, well said. All right, wow. Um, I believe that does it. That'll wrap it up and everything. Garrett, we just completed our alpha. I might edit this and just make this our actual podcast because I feel like this went really well.
I do too,
Uh,
actually.
I really feel confident about this one. We, unlike the last one, the last one, when we didn't do any research, we were like, man, we're a lot dumber than you know, when we thought, when it came to the Bill of Rights and everything, like our history on it and what they were. So, and that was awesome. But Garrett, thank you for joining me. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching the United People's Podcast. Thank you for watching, and y'all have a fantastic day. And stop. Yay! Oh, wait. No, shit. I didn't stop recording. Hold on. I stopped the video, not the recording. Hold on.
You can edit that out.